Okay, I'm just gonna let the last few people come into the studio, into the room, and take their seats. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Thanks for being with us again. I hope you had some good coffee and refreshments outside. We're now going to move straight into the second half of this forum titled Deepening Canada Philippines Collaboration in Strategic Sectors, where we will examine priority areas for cooperation in defense, digital partnerships, critical minerals, and clean technology. I think the first panel already set us up beautifully, so we're going to take off from there. As both countries expand their security arrangements and move forward with FTA negotiations, our discussion today will focus on how strategic alignment can be translated into practical, mutually beneficial collaboration. And with that, let me now call upon our esteemed panelists to the stage. First up, we have Undersecretary Sarah Maria Sison, DICT Undersecretary for Policy and Legal. Then we have Undersecretary Carlos Primo David, DENR Undersecretary for Integrated Environmental Science. Then we've got Dr. Sarah Schlem, Defense Policy Officer for the Canadian Department of National Defense. And finally, we've got Mr. Tony Gaffney. He's the founder and CEO of Lambay Group. And I'm moderating this session. But first, we're going to give 5 minutes to each speaker to give their opening remarks. I guess I'll start with you, Undersecretary.
Good morning, and thank you again to Stratbase Institute, the Philippine Asia Pacific Foundation of Canada, and the Embassy of Canada in the Philippines for this opportunity to contribute to this discussion once again. At this pivotal moment in Philippine-Canadian relations, we are very honored to represent the DICT as both countries work to deepen their partnership. Yesterday, we had a very productive strategic dialogue that further reinforced the path towards stronger economic ties, supported by trusted digital systems, resilient supply chains, and stronger defense-related industrial linkages. With laser focus on delivering tangible results within 12 months, as Mary said, at warp speed, we are prioritizing realistic near-term initiatives in governance, skills readiness, and institutional cooperation established by the government data classification and data residency policy. The dialogue was very candid, it was very comprehensive, lively, and refreshingly smooth. As mentioned yesterday, the relationship between the Philippines and Canada is one that is very ideal, so to speak. In the Philippines, digital transformation has become a central pillar in our national development goals. Based on the country's latest National ICT Household Survey taken last 2024, nearly half of the Filipino households, 49%, now have internet access, and 67% of the individuals are online, reflecting a population increasingly dependent on digital platforms for communication, commerce, and government services. Increasing reliance on digital technologies has made the establishment of a trusted digital ecosystem a key policy priority of this government. To support this, the DICT, under the leadership of Secretary Henry Aguda, is pursuing a very comprehensive policy approach that addresses digital governance, digital infrastructure, and data management. So I would like to give everybody here an overview of the ICT policy and legislative landscape of the Philippines today. A key milestone in this effort is the E-Governance Act, RA 12254, enacted last September 2025. The Act strengthens the governance structure for digital government, promotes interoperability among government systems, and accelerates the digital transformation of public services. Following a comprehensive series of multi-stakeholder consultations and internal workshops conducted in coordination with the ADB, the draft implementing rules and regulations are currently undergoing final rounds of approval and is set to be released and signed very soon. By enabling more integrated government platforms and secure data exchange across agencies, the E-Governance Act aims to improve efficiency, transparency, and the overall delivery of public services. Within this framework is establishment of a national ICT Academy, as I had mentioned yesterday, as a center of excellence for education and workforce development. We looked into how trusted partners such as Canada can help us with this ICT Academy. Recognizing that connectivity is the foundation of digital transformation, the Konektadong Pinoy Act, RA 12234 or KP Act, establishes a comprehensive and inclusive framework for data transmission and connectivity. By removing barriers to competition, it promotes the development of data transmission infrastructure, which is key to digital inclusion. Following the publication of the KP Act's IRR last December 2025, we are currently moving forward with its very rigorous implementation. Further strengthening these efforts is a National Digital Connectivity Plan, which was approved by President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. this January 2026. It provides a comprehensive roadmap for expanding broadband networks, wireless connectivity, satellite systems, and other critical digital infrastructure across the Philippines. Collaboration with Canada in these areas can definitely help us leverage their expertise in advanced technologies and digital governance to improve network resilience and strengthen our digital supply chains. To solidify our leadership in the regional digital economy, we are advancing the Philippine AI Infrastructure Master Plan, a strategic roadmap to establish the country as a premier regional hub for AI compute services. We see very strong potential for collaboration with Canada in this space, particularly in leveraging their expertise in advanced data center standards and AI governance to support our infrastructure foundations. Canada has also been a long and crucial partner in supporting the Philippines during disasters and promoting aid in disaster relief and preparedness efforts. The Philippines is further strengthening its disaster resilience and preparedness through the National Emergency Communications Strategic Plan, a strategic roadmap to ensure critical telecommunication services remain operational across all phases of disaster management. We have felt the help of Canada during the Bohol crisis, the Cebu, even the earthquake and the floods that we all went through together. The plan specifically identifies international bodies, including bilateral donors and international organizations, as key stakeholders, signaling immense potential for continued practical collaboration with Canada. Last but definitely not the least, we have the Government Data Classification and Data Residency Policy, which introduces a risk-based framework for managing government data while ensuring that it remains subject to the laws and jurisdiction of the Republic of the Philippines. The policy direction is very clear. We are to safeguard local data when necessary to protect national security and public interest, while also recognizing cross-border data flows as essential to participation in the global economy. By codifying these rules, we are signaling that the Philippines is ready to lead by protecting our citizens while also empowering partners in global hyperscalers such as Canada, to seek a balanced hub that is secure by design. In the spirit of digital bayanihan, the Philippines is moving beyond policy towards institutionalizing trust. Taken together, these initiatives form the foundation of the Philippines' efforts to build a more secure, resilient, and inclusive digital ecosystem that supports digital government, expanded connectivity, and trusted data governance. Our digital landscapes become increasingly interconnected, International cooperation is actually more crucial than ever. The timing of our collaboration with Canada cannot be more perfect, with the FTA negotiations happening right now and the ASEAN chairship this year. We truly can strengthen our infrastructure and ensure responsible innovation. In this regard, Canada's leadership in artificial intelligence technology and governance, digital standards, and cybersecurity provide invaluable insights for the Philippines' own digital transformation. Thank you very much, mabuhay, and I look forward to talking with you.
Thank you so much, Yusek Sarah. I'll call on the other Sarah. Dr. Sarah, if you've got opening remarks, come on.
Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be here today and to be speaking with all of you. I'd like to join others in thanking the Stratbase Institute as well as the Asia Pacific Foundation of Canada for putting together such a wonderful event, both yesterday and then today. And also just to recognize the many distinguished guests here who are here today, as well as to thank my fellow panelists and discussants. I'm really looking forward to the panel discussion. One of the things I'd like to do in my opening remarks and then in our conversation is to speak about Canada's recently released defense industrial strategy, because it aligns so well with many of the themes that have made this dialogue so valuable, including economic security, including cyber resilience, AI, as well as defense industrial collaboration. And it's a pleasure to speak a bit about it with all of you today. The aim of Canada's first ever defense industrial strategy is simple: to rebuild Canada's defense industry to meet this unprecedented moment in our nation's history. The global security environment is deteriorating, and geography no longer guarantees Canada's security. Sovereignty today looks different than it once did. It is not only defended on land, sea, and air, it is also contested in cyberspace, in energy grids, in digital networks, in the flow of capital and information. As a result, our allies and our partners are rearming, and global demand for critical capabilities is accelerating. The procurement system we have has not been able to equip the Canadian Armed Forces at speed, support allies reliably, nor capture global opportunities. In the face of these geopolitical threats, Canada needs modern defense infrastructure and equipment to defend its sovereignty. And meeting those needs requires a true paradigm shift when it comes to how we approach our defense industrial base. We see Canada's defense industry as playing a powerful dual role in securing our nation while also acting as a very powerful catalyst for economic growth and jobs. The synergies that emerge from defense investments present a generational opportunity to Canada, and we are here to seize it. And that's the thinking that led up to the defense industrial strategy. Now, the Government of Canada is advancing this strategy with a clear vision of how to enhance our country's security, sovereignty, and prosperity. We will deliver the capabilities the Canadian Armed Forces need to defend the country, protect our sovereignty, and counter current and future threats. The strategy also, very importantly, provides the signal to industry, to allies, and to other partners, including to the Philippines, that we are moving forward with coherence and purpose. In doing so, Canada will gain greater strategic autonomy and reduce our vulnerabilities to international pressures and threats. At the same time, we will build a flourishing economy for all Canadians. As part of these efforts, the new Defense Investment Agency, which was launched last fall, will play a central role in delivering our mission across all the lines of effort in the strategy. The Defense Investment Agency, or the DIA, is streamlining high-priority defense procurements, and with the strategy, it will help strengthen Canada's defense industrial base, drive innovation, and ensure faster delivery of equipment to the Canadian Armed Forces and to the Canadian Coast Guard. Now, the strategy calls for Canada to take action on 5 parallel fronts. First, we will reimagine our relationship with the private sector and unveil new supports and programs to do so. As mentioned, we will also transform procurement through a new build, partner, buy framework, which is led by the Defense Investment Agency. This approach prioritizes domestic production and as well as partnership with trusted allies, and developing Canadian champions and sovereign capabilities will be critical. Another key pillar, and very relevant to our discussions today, is investing with purpose to stimulate research and development. We are here to help Canada's innovators scale up their discoveries, and our firms will receive new backing to grow their Canadian footprint while competing abroad. We also, and another relevant theme, need to make our supply chains more resilient, including for critical minerals. And then finally, it's very important to note with all of the entire strategy, it's a whole of society plan. And to that end, we are teaming up with partners across Canada, including in the North and Arctic, to deliver this vision. Now, as we roll out the strategy, as I've mentioned, developing our sovereign capabilities is a top priority. Those capabilities are priority investment areas for which our government aims to maximize secure strategic autonomy and reduce supply chain vulnerabilities. These 10 capability areas play to Canada's strengths and advance our ambitions in areas from ammunition and manufacturing to digital and autonomous systems. Crucially, we know that we cannot achieve these ends alone. Where Canada lacks the capability to build domestically, or where there is advantage to working jointly with partners, it will pursue partnerships with trusted partners and multinational firms to deliver the capabilities needed by the Canadian Armed Forces. Now, a priority will be placed on diversifying Canada's partnership opportunities, including in the Indo-Pacific. Partnerships, in terms of what they will look like, will be defined by joint work, joint building, and the sharing of key technologies and IP in a manner that reinforces our alliances and underpins Canadian sovereignty. As we seek greater opportunities for collaboration that will strengthen Canada's security, we note that the Philippines is one of Canada's most important defense partners in the Indo-Pacific, and a stated priority partner for defense cooperation in the Indo-Pacific strategy. As others have noted, Canada and the Philippines enjoy a strong relationship based on shared values, economic interests, and strong people-to-people ties. We also share a need for capabilities that provide enhanced maritime domain awareness, stemming from our nation's long coastlines. These capabilities include things like sensors, artificial intelligence, and uncrewed and autonomous systems. Recent defense agreements between Canada and the Philippines are well aligned with the defense industrial strategy in presenting an opportunity to better understand our respective armed forces' future requirements and develop our capabilities accordingly. Canada and the Philippines signing in November 2025 of a Status of Visiting Forces agreement will be an important source of requirement discovery once it is brought into force. There are also ample opportunities to continue to work together to develop cyber defense capabilities. These priorities align closely with the themes and objective of the Philippines' 2026 ASEAN chairmanship, particularly strengthening supply chain security, artificial intelligence integration, and maritime domain awareness. We look forward to an open dialogue about our deepening defense partnership that will advance our respective and collective national security and defense needs, and I look forward to our panel discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sarah Schlem. I'm gonna invite USEC CP David now, if he has opening remarks prepared.
Thank you. I didn't prepare anything.
You don't have to if you don't want to.
No.
Okay.
Okay. I really didn't prepare anything for this forum because I wanted to speak to each and every one from the heart, air some of my frustrations, but more of my hopes and dreams for our country. When we talk about resources, critical minerals included, I go back to a core memory of mine from elementary school, much like Dindo, wherein my teacher said, mayaman ang Pilipinas sa likas na yaman. In English, the Philippines is rich in natural resources. And I guess that statement, no, from third grade stuck to me because, and subconsciously, it probably affected and influenced my decision to become a geologist. But fast forward to today, after 3 years in DNR and having been assigned by former Secretary Loizaga to map out all the country's resources, I confirm to each and every one of you that indeed we are rich in natural resources. We have 15 million hectares of forest land. Much of it is degraded, but the good news there is that these lands are still considered as public lands. Last year, we released 1 million hectares of these lands for investment, not only for agroforestry, but also for agriculture, renewable energy for solar farms, and for other beneficial uses. Mind you that although 15 million hectares might not be a lot if we speak to our Canadian friends, because they do have a much, much larger forest cover, but it is here in the Philippines wherein we can grow a fully grown tree in just under 10 years, 6 years in fact. Wherein in temperate regions like the United States and Canada, it takes them about 50 years before they can harvest timber. We also have a lot of fertile soils, and because of our weather, this is replenished every single decade. No, and in other countries, it takes them about 100 years to form 1 centimeter of soil. Water is also an important resource that we have. In fact, we have too much water that it causes flooding, and we see it as a disadvantage. To me, as a hydrologist, I see it as a core advantage of the country because that water that causes flooding is the same water that we need for irrigation, for aquaculture, hydropower, ecotourism, domestic water, and so on and so forth. So what is needed here is a change in mindset, that some of the disadvantages that we see, maybe the warm weather, the too much water during the rainy season, are actually advantages that we should capitalize. Finally, if we talk about minerals, then I wanted to give you some statistics. We are indeed rich in critical minerals. Canada, as reported, has about 100 million tons of copper reserves. The Philippines has 40 million tons of copper reserves. But if you compare the sizes of both countries, we are just 3% the size of Canada, and yet we have almost half the amount of copper of our friends from Canada. In terms of nickel, we are still second largest exporter of raw nickel. We have to work on that. The good news is that we are barely scratching the surface in terms of utilizing these minerals. Whether we export it as raw or processed, the percentage of the amount of nickel that we have and have exported is still very, very small. Gold in recent times has increased its price. 2 weeks ago, our department announced that we have increased our revenue from gold, despite the fact that our production actually went down. Now, and this is a testament to the increasing price of gold in recent times. So, my question is, if we are rich in all these resources, whether it's soil, water, biodiversity, forest land, critical minerals, how come we remain poor? And I think after a few years in the DNR, I have some more ideas on why this is so. Number one, we have counter-developmental policies that prohibit us from developing these resources. What we need to do now is unlock unlock these resources and actually start developing them. Second, and this is almost 100% complete, we do not know what we have, and therefore we cannot manage what we don't know that we have. We have done so in DNR, mapping all our forest cover, corals, mangroves, minerals, and so on and so forth, and then therefore that data is actually very important. And the next step, of course, last but not least, is to invest in natural resource development. Perhaps we need an ally country like Canada to tell us, wake up, let us invest and show you how much you have, because as us Filipinos, we have overlooked. No? If we did have oil, like the Middle Eastern countries, I'm sure we have developed it. Unfortunately, we were not given by God petroleum. But what was given to us are all these minerals and a tropical weather that pretty much replenishes all renewable resources, whether it's soil, water, sunlight, and so on and so forth. So why aren't we capitalizing on that? Canada, please tell us. And start investing, Ambassador, because one of the mantras of being Filipino, I guess, is to see is to believe. We will never start anything unless we see that it is working. And because no one is starting that, maybe somebody else should start it, and once we see it, then we realize how rich we are. Finally, I think the ultimate goal of natural resource development can be summarized in a short phrase, which I coined, and hopefully this is going to be the strategy moving forward. The goal is for us to convert natural capital into national wealth. And when we talk about national wealth, this is not just economic, this is social equity and social progress, as well as environmental protection. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Yusek CP, for that very sobering assessment. We do have oil, apparently out in the West Philippine Sea, but that's a topic for another day. And now, Mr. Tony Gaffney, you have no choice. You have to come up and deliver some remarks as well.
Thank you very much. It's just on a personal note, it's fantastic, I would say, to be back here in the Philippines. Earlier in my career, I had an opportunity through a role I had, which was being responsible for Accenture's outsourcing business in Canada, at working with the Philippines as an incredible partner, and got to understand everything in terms of the capabilities, but most importantly, how we align on values and how we both really treasure relationships as a foundation as to how to do business. So wonderful to be back. Now, a lot of discussion about the moment we're in, the nature of the crisis, and I'm a big believer that every crisis presents great opportunity. And I think that's certainly the situation with us. And it's an opportunity to reset our expectations, think big, be bold, and act with great urgency. Now, it was exciting yesterday to explore as to how can we leverage our combined strengths, focus on a few select areas in doing so, and drive meaningful economic and societal outcomes, a point that's been mentioned already a few times in the last short while. And to do that in the near to medium term. Now, the question that I think rose in everybody's mind was simply where to focus in order to move forward. And I thought it would be helpful to share some of what I kind of, on reflection on the conversation yesterday, we're starting to rise as some of the criteria to decide as to where we focus. And I would break it into three areas. One is to make sure that in capturing the opportunity and what we choose to focus on, that it solves a challenge, one that's relevant to both the Philippines and Canada, but also relevant at an ASEAN level and rest of world level as well. And I'm really driving my thinking in terms of we need to think big and have high aspirations. And that has economic and societal impact that is much greater than what each of us could do alone. So that's criteria number one. The second one is that it needs to be in an area where we have foundations that we can build on to enable us to have a quick start. And the third criteria is that whatever we choose needs to be compelling such that industry and investors will embrace the opportunity and engage right away as well. I think, Mary, your reflection on the trade mission about a year and a half ago that you led, you obviously nailed it in that regard, because they were on board right away to engage the way that they did. And I think that needs to be part of our thinking as we decide where to focus. So the other is, it struck me that we have a remarkable alignment on what are, I would call them success factors, but in actually partnering on AI between countries, if there isn't alignment, they become huge friction points. And they are as follows. One, we're aligned on the fact that AI is not a separate thing of its own, that it's actually, to make it simple, it's digital intelligence. And that changes our mindsets. The other is that digital resilience is a key enabler of economic resilience, that AI trust is foundational to both, and that AI trust requires a collective view of all of the elements that make up trust. And I'm just going to quickly list them here. One is public trust, foundational. AI infrastructure, all elements, power, water, network, computer, data, and intelligence. The continuum of policy, legislation, regulation, and governance, but focused on the application or the use case is what is emerging as a great practice to make that tangible and figure out what the correct combination is. Talent, cyber, misinformation, standards that really are critical to operability, and adoption strategies. And then looking at the whole cycle from AI in research right through to retirement of the models and agents and so on. Now, why include all of those elements? The reason, very simply, if any one of those fails, then it obstructs resilience. Any one of those elements. So when we talk about trust, it needs to be inclusive of those. We then went on to talk about specific areas. We've touched on some of them and look forward to elaborating on them, but clearly AI trust is a no-brainer. Critical minerals. And then we also spent time looking at areas that could potentially meet the criteria that I just listed. And as I think Mary, you mentioned as well, that whole area and combination of, you're a global leader in the whole IT BPM market. And there are elements of the service you provide. Health is a good example where you also excel. So it's areas like that focusing on, we can really drive outcomes. The other then is looking at what we choose to make sure that it's accelerating our strategies, it's helping us together move up the value chain, and to achieve and outperform the target outcomes we have in our respective strategies as well. Now, to close, I was trying to think, Mary, you said, let's go. And I love that. And I was trying to think of what's a tagline that would even describe it as to how we would go. And just by chance, I spotted one, which in Formula One, I don't know if any of you followed that, but the Aston Martin team just embraced Cohere, one of the companies we're very proud of in Canada. And their tagline, which I'd suggest we give some consideration to, is speed. In our case, it'll have to be responsibly and safely done. But move with speed, precision, and continuously improve our performance. So thank you very much. I look forward to participating with the panel.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tony. What was that? Precision, speed, and?
And continuous improvement.
I like just do it better, I think. Okay, the first thing I want to do before I kick off the conversation proper, we don't have a lot of time, is give USEC CP a chance to take the baton from Undersecretary Perry earlier when he talked about a minerals framework that the DENR is working on and is, I don't know, maybe getting ready to announce. That's going to cut the permitting time. I mean, I know he wasn't supposed to talk about it, but whatever, the cat's out of the bag. So if you could just.
I didn't know where he got the news, no, but I worked on this draft EO for a year with then Osapea, with SecGo. The contents of that EO actually clarifies a lot of the gray areas of the Mining Act. At the very start, the core principle is that minerals are owned by the state, and therefore all mining development are actually national projects, wherein our mining companies serve as the contractor of the state. Now that small distinct difference as to what we think now, that the mining companies own the minerals, is a policy that changes the mindset. And that one change of the mindset there would be that national government should actually also be pushing for these projects, because we own, as national government, we own these projects. So that's one. The second one, I think that's most important in that EO, is that the principle of use it or lose it. We have many permits for mining that are not moving. These are idle assets, never developed in the past. Government should take it back and offer it through public bidding for other companies to be able to develop it. So I don't know how Yusek Perry knew that it was going to be signed, but it is, yes, it is on the desk.
Job to know.
It is on the desk of the president.
Right.
And
So it's going to be an EO, executive order.
It is an EO,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, and we don't
So-
have a timeline for this yet.
I am hoping that within the next few weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does it not run counter to the mining fiscal regime? Because now we're talking about a
Not at all.
mindset change,
No.
where
No.
the state owns the assets and not the company. So that's going to have serious implications for their operations.
In fact, this is complementary. The fiscal regime for mining from last year is like the big sister of this EO. And we don't need a Republic Act for some of these clarifications because they're in the IRR. It's just redefining what mining should be.
Okay, fantastic. We'll circle back to the critical minerals point a little later on, but now I want to talk about AI and new cyber capabilities, which is right up your alley, Dr. Sarah Schlem. It's, these new technologies are fundamentally reshaping defense procurement, planning, and in some cases, as we saw in Iran, war planning even. How has that changed the game for you, and what sorts of concerns do you have around this?
Yeah, it's a great question and a very important one. When it comes to AI and when it comes to cyber capabilities, and from Canada's perspective, we think about sovereign control, secure infrastructure, commercial viability, and safety. And those were apparent in a number of Tony's remarks as well. That extends to how we consider collaboration when it comes to those capabilities too. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, Canada's Defence Industrial Strategy is actually developing AI as one of its sovereign capabilities, these priority investment areas. And it's doing so on multiple fronts, which addresses your question, Regina. And we have a focus on protecting and growing Canadian intellectual property as well as data, on expanding access to capital for Canada's innovative firms, including our small and medium-sized enterprises who drive a lot of important innovation for both defense and dual-use technologies. We're also, through some initial investments that were made even before the strategy's official release in Budget 2025, there were a number of initiatives that already got underway. And they include, especially for dual-use technologies, specialized commercialization supports which is very important. And also in these initial investments is something that addresses advanced R&D. We provided the funding to establish Borealis, or the Bureau of Research Leadership and Engineering Leadership and Innovation in Science. And the acronym is Borealis, and that's a really exciting initiative to take Canada's R&D, which is a real crown jewel of what we do, and to make it easier for government and industry and academia to come together in secure, specialized spaces and to take and to collaborate on these really exciting projects. Finally, with respect to AI, I'd also mention the Department of National Defense and the Canadian Armed Forces Artificial Intelligence Strategy, which was published in 2024. That was a very important document for how we're approaching the matters that you asked about, Regina. And that explains in part how Canada's AI priorities will be advanced by a strong AI ecosystem and enabling procurement and development of technologies to ensure interoperability and credibility with allies. There's a lot more to say on the topic, but I'll conclude by saying just that discussions between Canada and the Philippines on AI and cyber partnerships can certainly draw on the strong dialogue and engagements that we're having today and through other forums, and in keeping with Canada's key digital collaboration priorities.
Thank you, Sarah. Is there a specific role for the Philippines in Canada's AI strategy, or is that too early to ask?
Well, in terms of the 2024 document, the AI strategy, I would say that that effort is being led by the Department of National Defense's AI Center, which was established to deliver on everything, including partnerships. And I think they're moving forward on everything I've just described, and there's a lot of room for discussion.
For deeper collaboration.
For deeper collaboration,
Fantastic.
absolutely.
Now I'm going to go to the other Sarah, Undersecretary Sarah. First things first, I wanted your assessment on how the Philippines is faring in terms of digital capabilities and cybersecurity. You know, what's improved in the past few years and what hasn't, where are the big gaps still? I know that we've climbed up the ladder with the UN's Global Cybersecurity Index, but then on the other hand as well, there are other reports, like I think it was last year, Microsoft ranked the Philippines 20th in terms of countries that are most prone to cyber attacks. So there's both a push and pull factor here, right. And I'm just wondering how you're seeing this landscape at the moment.
Right. So I'd speak first on AI and then cybersecurity. So for AI, we have we went up seven steps higher in our ranking, but we still lag behind our countries in ASEAN. In cybersecurity, we are also improving, but not at the pace that we would hope we are improving. I think we had a separate cybersecurity forum by Stratbase as well discussing this. But for AI, so we have the AI roadmap that the Philippines is implementing, and aside from sharing of information which the ICT is already doing now. We also have the tax incentives under the CREATE Act, of course, to attract foreign investments to the Philippines. One of the struggles that was mentioned yesterday was for investors is the unpredictability of Philippine government services. Everyone here knows that. But the e-Governance Act is here to solve that. We are digitalizing government services on a comprehensive scope. Of course, there's birthing pains and there are growing pains, but we are starting right now. The guidelines will be out in a month or within this month, and hopefully that will facilitate business to come here, and it will not take 10 years to get a permit or 2 years to get a permit, because once everything is online and securely online, then we are looking towards a brighter situation.
This AI roadmap, does it just look at the economic dimensions, or does it also have a security and defense component?
I wouldn't speak for the security and defense component, but for DICT, it's actually more to improve government services, and more on the economic
Just
factor.
really
than security.
streamlining
Yes.
services. Tony, let me come to you. You've heard what everyone said about AI, which is, you know, right up your alley. Canada, when you think about Canada, it's built a robust AI research ecosystem. You've been in the Philippines a few days. Where are you seeing the opportunities for greater collaboration as far as new technology is concerned?
So I think the opportunities for us to collaborate together, obviously. I'd start by saying the ecosystem that we've developed in Canada is the value proposition to industry and public sector would be the same. Is the ecosystem that we've set up helps accelerate the adoption of AI, and it also helps de-risk it. And the manner in which we do that, the way it works is at a national level. We've got a AI strategy that was developed in one of the first actually in the world in 2017. We've continued to refresh that. And key elements are what we call our Canadian AI Safety Institute, which is really providing that trust level from a research and an application standpoint. So very directly connected, not just on research, but through to risk mitigation. And then we have our research institutes, which means we've got a huge and leading research capability. And then through the institutes and working with academia in combination with industry, we've created a bridge, which is basically, think of it as a sandbox where we have applied AI engineering capability to take the leading research and practically translate it into software that industry can use. So it prevents industry and the public sector from having to do the research themselves. There's a multitude of choices on how with AI you can do anything, so it cuts all of that out, and it gives them an opportunity to focus right in based on their needs and actually collaborate, even though many of them are competing with each other, to land on something that they're all comfortable with, aware of, and can take it back and then modify it to compete. So it's a very, very practical application. And I think the opportunity for us to collaborate is actually to look at the Philippines market together and challenge ourselves as to how, from an industry and public sector perspective, you can plug into that to achieve the same benefits.
I mean, it sounds great in principle. The thing, though, is that cross-border technology partnerships are difficult and complex and difficult to sustain and all of that, especially given how geographically far both these countries we're talking about is. From your experience, and you sound like you've seen a lot of these rollouts before, where are the points of difficulty and what can the two sides, the Philippines and Canada, do to head off these challenges?
Okay, I would say you're absolutely right. More fail than are successful. It's as simple as that. And if I was to point to the areas of failure, that list very well aligns with our areas of alignment. So that's an opportunity for us. It doesn't mean that we're guaranteed success. I think, and I go back to the conversation about involving industry. Right? I think what's critically important is to, again, focus on areas where there's a foundation that you can start with, not have to create that, and make sure that what you choose is a shared goal in each of the country's strategies, and then work together to make that happen. And use a vanguard use case, because it does everything from, it smooths out all of what has to be, refined in terms of partnering together. And the other thing it does is, once you get into collaborating on AI, between two countries, there are different stages when it comes to everything from policy, legislation, regulation, standards, and so on. But if you just pick one and you move that forward, it'll help you identify and solve out those things. And you're not trying to solve it for the nation and the world, you're trying to solve it for that specific use case. And that's where, in that tagline, I think the mindset of continuously improving as you go, as opposed to trying to get it all defined and set up
And you have to be as focused and specific as possible, it
Absolutely.
sounds like. That's what a good shared goal looks like.
Yeah.
I'm going to circle back to critical minerals as we talked about. And I'm sorry for jumping around, by the way, because I don't have a lot of time. It was brought up earlier that the Philippines signed a critical minerals framework with the United States. To be honest, we in the media have been hounding Ambassador Romualdez about it, but what it contains exactly, the only thing he's told us is that the United States has committed to helping develop processing plants for the Philippines, but there's no other details around that. So I wonder if you could talk us through that, what's involved, and more importantly, in the context of today, how much room does that leave for similar deals with other partner countries?
There's nothing exclusive to that MOU. It's mostly preparatory work for plans for the future. So it has had a lot of works like work together and plan.
Commit.
There's no commit
commit.
there. There's no commit yet. But I guess it lays the groundwork for future collaboration. And definitely this is not just with the United States. No, we should be partnering with everybody.
So it doesn't bind us to anything just yet, and there's no time commitment to this. So you're saying that there is room for similar deals with other countries.
Oh, for
Is there an
sure.
opportunity
Yes,
here for
yes.
Canada to
Yes.
come in?
Definitely.
What is it going to take actually to get the Philippines to a point where it can process its own minerals? I think you pointed out in your speech earlier that the vast majority of nickel ore, for instance, or copper ore are still being exported because we just have no capabilities on the ground. You know, people are banging on your door here and saying, we can help. What help do you need?
For nickel processing, for copper, so that we set that aside, is actually already processed in some form that can be useful for different industries already. It's the problem is with nickel, wherein we actually ship out, believe it or not, soil. Nickel is in a particular type of soil that we find abundantly here in the Philippines. So we're shipping out really soil, garden soil, if you may. And therefore, the obvious next step there is to process it and get a little bit more value from what we are exporting. Granted that the investment required for nickel processing is huge, right? I think that's the main barrier alongside the price of electricity, which makes our private sector doubtful that it may work. So in the absence of private sector jumping in, I think what needs to be done is for government to actually put up a common service facility. Let government plus a partner, private sector or country, put up a processing facility that and mandate the nearby nickel mines to sell their ore to this facility. Again, as I mentioned earlier, everything is to see is to believe. If somebody sees this working, for sure, we would have several other processing facilities in the country.
But we've changed our tagline today. Now it's just do it. It's no longer to see is to believe. Which brings us to supply chain resilience, Sarah. We keep coming back to the point that economic security is national security all throughout this morning. And that's become part of your job as well, supply chain resilience. Talk us through the conversations you're having there and how Canada is approaching this space.
Absolutely. It's a pivotal question, as I discussed in my opening remarks, for the Defense Industrial Strategy, but also across the Government of Canada and for the Government of the Philippines as well, and is apparent in the Philippines' ASEAN chairmanship priorities, as noted earlier. Our discussions about defense cooperation are happening at a time when both Canada and the Philippines, as well as many other countries, are looking to strengthen their industrial capacity as well as build these secure, resilient supply chains that are capable of delivering the requirements that we need. And from Canada's perspective, the actions that we're advancing through the Defence Industrial Strategy really go hand in hand with how we're thinking about the build, partner, buy framework that I discussed earlier, which is going to complement our supply chain measures with a vision of Canada's efforts to diversify and build new defense industrial collaborations. And we're going to focus on areas where we can't build the capabilities fully ourselves, or where collaboration can make us more secure. That's how we're thinking about it.
And I guess, well, it sounds like Indo-Pacific is going to play a role in that as well.
Absolutely.
Despite the fact that we are, quite far away.
Yes, absolutely. There's in the Defense Industrial Strategy, it's noted that there will be a priority placed on diversifying partnership opportunities, including in the Indo-Pacific. Absolutely.
Critical minerals is going to be part of that discussion.
Within the Defense Industrial Strategy, supply chain resilience, critical minerals is absolutely central. And in fact, some of the initial investments actually focused on critical minerals, stockpiling, and investments in these processing technologies, which will be so important. So there are a lot of opportunities for discussion.
Fantastic. At this point, I have to open the floor, to open questions to the floor. If there's anyone who, I've got two hands over here. Somebody's going to come to you with a mic. If you could just identify yourself and ask a question, and ask your question, but try to keep it short, sorry, because we're running out of time.
Thank you. I am Commissioner De La Cruz from the Climate Change Commission. I'm waiting for the climate actions amid all of this Canada-Philippine partnership. So allow me to please, this is not a question, this is just a quick input as a form of intervention. The IPCC provides that by 2050, there will be an atlas of human suffering if we do some simply mining and fossil fuel. And that is why, what does it mean for the Philippines? First, a 50% collapse in the fish catch, 13% drop in corn yield, displacement of the 13 million people due to the sea level rise. To avert this and to secure the Canada-Philippine Economic Partnership, including all these kind of development that we are speaking, I propose 3 interventions. Number 1, climate mainstreaming across all pillars. We must move beyond silo policies. Climate action is now a prerequisite for national security and all types of development. We must integrate climate risk assessment into all economic, military, digital partnership, ensuring our bilateral defense and Canada-Philippine FTA are structurally resilient to the agricultural and displacement shock projected by 2050. Number 2, localized AI and local action plan and local adaptation plan. We must empower LGUs, the local government unit, to move from theory to survival by integrating Canadian AI and remote sensing into local climate action plan and mainstreaming EcoSaver.Earth platform in the Philippines. We provide local leaders with hyper-local data needed to protect community-level supply chains and mitigate the specific 2050 risk of crop failures and water scarcity. Number 3, green digital and financial sovereignty. Our digital transformation, including AI and data centers, must be green by design to avoid accelerating the 2-degree breach. We should leverage the Canadian Climate and Nature Fund, CANPA, to provide the first loss guarantees for local green projects using EcoSaver.Earth, a platform invented by the Filipino for transparency in monitoring the carbon footprint and impact of all these programs and investment. On that note, by 2050, we want to have a total development, but we have, if we breach 2-degree centigrade, all of this national security framework and economic development will be in vain. Thank you, Your Excellency.
You're absolutely right, sir. Thank you for that reminder, that very sobering reminder. And I'm going to go to the gentleman at the back for your question, and also the lady at the back table, if we could get the questions together.
Yeah, I'll ask a question, not make a speech. I had, for Dr. Sarah, anyone else who wants to answer this, the Gulf War is really happening at warp speed. I think a lot of allies of Canada are recalibrating their defense plans. And for example, what we're seeing in the attack on Iran right now is basically Israel being used as a springboard to attack Iran. a lot of Gulf allies sitting on the sidelines. Do you think, and I think it's fair to say that China is recalibrating its plans for a possible retake of Taiwan, can treaty allies like the Philippines be relied on as a springboard for the United States to defend Taiwan? And then secondly, just very quickly, Arctic security, as we found in the war in Ukraine, things cannot be converted just overnight. It takes years and years and years to bolster defenses. Europeans are finding that. With the new defense strategy, can Canada really be expected within even 10 years to bolster Arctic security that it makes a big difference? Thank you. And
Thank you, sir.
Michael
That's a
Bostic
great
with the
question.
Atlantic Council.
I feel like that's more a question for General Bronner. If you are, no. I mean, apart from Sarah here, none of these guys are, in defense. So really, okay. Did you want to answer that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those are two very important questions. I think your first question about the geopolitical climate in which we find ourselves, I've been very grateful to be in the Philippines for the last couple of days and to have these deep discussions with our partners and to discuss our shared priorities and how we're thinking about global security together. So my answer to your first question would just be that these are really important forums for discussions so we can see where our priorities are and how we can work together. And with respect to your second question about Arctic security, I think it's absolutely critical, and you're seeing it not only in the defense industrial strategy, but in how our government is thinking about defense and security more broadly. Within the defense industrial strategy in particular, as mentioned, the fifth line of effort is all about how we can leverage partnerships across Canada to deliver on our defense, economic, and security needs, and our economic security needs, including in Canada's north, leveraging local partnerships wherever possible. So it's absolutely a top priority, and I'm glad you brought it up. Thank you.
I have an idea. General Bronner, if you can't speak, there are two other former AFP chiefs of staff here. General Bautista, do you want to weigh in? Where's General Lorenzana? There's two other AFP former chiefs of staff here, no? Okay, what about the question at the back, please? The last question.
Hello, hi, I'm Donna Lina representing the Management Association of the Philippines. Earlier, Dr. CP discussed about the critical minerals, which may probably take a little bit longer in terms of processing and investment. Very quickly, Sir CP, can you guide us through the new sustainable forestry investments that Canada perhaps can take a look at?
Absolutely. 1.2 million hectares out of 8 million hectares of degraded forest land were opened last year for investment. And I'm happy to announce to everybody that just last week we signed the first two agreements. And this is a 200-hectare forest land mixed use development mainly for onshore wind in Bicol. And therefore, there are so many other areas that can be developed, and I'm almost certain that some of it will be converted into huge agricultural production areas to help us in food security. There's one interest for 5,000 hectares for solar, and this is 5 gigawatts of renewable energy in the Visayas. So very exciting times. Obviously, there are groups that do not think that this will work, but hopefully, at the very least, I should say, at the very least, these are assets of the government that have been idle for so long that we are now able to utilize with just a small unlocking policy in our department. So looking forward to seeing more, even from MAP and your company, Donna. I'm hoping that you'll take on some of these parcels and start developing them, create jobs, and contribute to the economy.
Thank you, Donna, for that question. I know we are out of time. I'm going to give the last two words first to Tony and then to you, Sarah. Tony, if you could point to one concrete step that we could do this year that could meaningfully advance Canada-Philippines technology cooperation, what would it be?
It would be to let's go do it. And as a launch pad, use the 1.8 million funding that Mary alluded to earlier to enable that.
Fantastic. You said, Sarah, there's already several strands of Canada-Philippines cooperation going on. There's deep collaboration going on. But from practical terms, because I know there's a lot of frameworks that we've worked out in the last 2 years, but in practical terms, what else do you guys need?
So first of all, thank you so much to Canada for being so generous with your resources and your expertise. So specifically, with our ask from the Canadian government and your private sector is to help us with your expertise in Open RAN technologies and advanced data center standards. Of course, we need this to strengthen the Philippine digital infrastructure and supply chains as well. And I've been talking to Tony because we are going to do it already with our AI projects. Thank you.
Fantastic. Ambassador Hartman is here. He can make things happen. Okay. Okay, we'll leave that there. Thank you so much, everyone, for your attention. I have to wrap it up now because I've run over 5 minutes. And as I keep pointing to the fact that there's 3 generals on this table, I don't want to put a toe out of line. Where is my script? And we have to remain on stage for a brief photo opportunity and invite Ambassador Hartman and Professor Dindo once more back on stage. And also Ms. Vina Najibula. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. And I'm just going to hand the stage over to Ms. Vina to share her closing remarks.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, everyone, and thank you for this fantastic panel. I recognize that now I am between you and lunch, so I'm not going to try to wrap up by summarizing everything that we heard today, which was a really rich 3-hour conversation. But I think what has come out really clearly are kind of the 3 Ps as a takeaway from this conversation. People, I think we've all agreed that the foundation of our relationship is the people-to-people connection and the strength that our people bring to this, both government, private sector, as well as academia. It's partnership. Our partnership is strategic. It's not just economic and commercial or transactional. It's full spectrum. It's across the board, technology, defense, commerce, and then potential. That we have so much potential in this relationship. It's untapped. It has been untapped because of many other reasons in the past, but in this current moment of crisis, there is an opportunity to really take this relationship to the next level. We have to just do it. I think that is true. And we now have a timetable of about 12 months because we have the free trade agreement negotiations. We have Prime Minister Carney coming here for the ASEAN Summit. Philippines is leading, of course, in those discussions. So I think that kind of leader-to-leader summit provides us an opportunity, both through the FTA, but also on these 3 critical areas around energy, critical minerals in particular, through MOUs, through capital, through partnerships, especially in digital, through AI, and especially digital platforms. And then defense industrial cooperation, that we really need to take this to the next level. So I think, if anything, this conversation, the last 2 days and this morning, showcases what we can be doing together, not just for the benefit of our 2 peoples, not just so that we can turn national capital into national wealth, which I think is really point well taken, and a mindset change is underway, I think, in the Philippines. We can feel it, and Canada can help, but also to make sure that together we're also preserving peace and rules-based order in the Indo-Pacific. That last question was, I think, very relevant. We'll be back here for the Manila South China Sea dialogue, and we will continue to cooperate with you on those topics, which are really relevant. From Asia Pacific Foundation of Canada, we're just so grateful to Stratbase, to Professor Dindo and his team, to Ambassador Hartman and to his team, and also for the entire delegation that came with us from Canada. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of you for being with us. If you want to stay in touch with our work, visit our website. As everybody, we have a newsletter. We'll be happy to share that information. We have scholarships, fellowships, research grants. So the academics in the room, please do reach out to us. It has been, again, tremendous. I hope to see you when we're back here in the fall. Take care and enjoy lunch.
Thanks so much, Vina, and great to hear that Prime Minister Carney is confirmed for the ASEAN Summit. Okay, we've reached the end of the program. Allow me to thank our distinguished guests and panelists for their time and insights. Today's discussions have shown clearly that Canada and the Philippines are not merely aligned in values, we are increasingly aligned in action. From securing supply chains and advancing digital cooperation to building resilient defense industries, the path forward is one we are committed to walking together, as Vina said, full spectrum across the board. These conversations are not going to end here, or we hope you're not going to end here. We are committed to ensuring they continue and that the ideas exchanged today become the groundwork for concrete, lasting collaboration between our two nations. So thanks so much for joining us this morning. Lunch is now served outside. Please do enjoy the meal and the conversations. And once again, my name is Regina Lay. I've been your host this morning. Thank you so much for the attention.